Good afternoon, everyone, and thank you for coming to today's webinar. I am Jonathan Fiedler, and I am the Operations Manager at BISG. Today's webinar is on the topic of turning damaged inventory into revenue without hurting new book sales. Selling damaged and returned inventory can not only provide an untapped source of revenue for publishers, but with the right partner, can also help publishers uncover valuable market data, as well as provide a means to monitor for counterfeit copies of books. As our presenter today will explain, all of this can be obtained without hurting the sale of publishers' new books. We're lucky to be joined by Marshall Glickman, founder of Echo Point Books and Media, which has specialized in the sale of used books for nearly 20 years. Echo Point also publishes print, audio, and ebooks, and Mr. Glickman himself is the author of 2 books. He understands the challenges that publishers face and is excited to share some thoughts with you today. I'm pleased to welcome Marshall to join us.
Okay, thank you. Let's just see. I hit share screen.
And if Marshall, if you want to start your video.
Yeah, is that working? Can people see me, Jonathan?
Start your video.
Okay, bear with me one moment. Sorry, guys. Okay. So sorry. Why I can't? I'm not seeing Zoom for some reason. Oh, there we go. Okay, now I think it's okay. It's now seems to be working?
We're all set. Thank you so much.
Great, good. Thank you. Sorry about that little glitch there. Hopefully things will go a little smoother. So as Jonathan said, my name is Marshall Glickman. I'm the founder of Echo Point Books and Media. I'm going to just briefly tell you what we're going to cover today, and then give a very brief bit of background and be available for questions. So first, a little bit of background, the challenges that are faced in the market, the opportunity, our unique approach, and the details of how we do what we do, and then data backing up our contention that we don't hurt new book sales by selling damaged books or returns or participating in the used book market. So let me start with a little bit of background about me. As Jonathan said, I've written a couple books. I come from a family of writers and book lovers, so the printed word and books are kind of like sacred to me. So I very much take the publisher's point of view. We also publish our own books, so very aware of the challenges publishers face. I have that picture, Green Living. I put out an environmental journal. Handling damaged books the way you do is also eco-friendly, but I particularly chose that cover because it's vaguely looks like the log house I own that we started Echo Point in, at the basement in a dirt road off a dirt road. And our approach, I believe, is a better mousetrap, and we've grown from that to be one of the largest online booksellers in the country, possibly the world. And now today this gives a picture of some of the books we publish. We do, between audio and books we publish, we have about 800 books and audios in print. We also do specialty bindings, and the biggest part of our business is still the damaged book business. We operate out of a large industrial warehouse, and our sales in 2020 were about $11 million plus, and we've sent over $35 million to our clients, partners, publishers. So it's a significant business and a real opportunity. The most common industry attitudes towards the used book market, so there are going to be a couple tongue-in-cheek slides coming up, is first, that tends to not get noticed at all, or Book Expo may be pushed to the, well, not pushed to the side, but they tend, even the damaged book remainder dealers are off to the side. No one really talks about the used book. Here are some of the reasons why. Again, no offense. They're meant to be animals just conveying attitude, nothing personal here. And so the number one concern, totally understandably, is can you participate in the used book market without hurting new book sales? Some people think what can we do? It doesn't even enter their mind to try to participate in those markets, or they've just always done things a certain way, which is they just destroy their damaged books, their rental returns or overstock they couldn't sell, or they think, hey, we're going to be primarily digital soon or all digital, so they think it's not an opportunity worth pursuing, or they think they don't have enough inventory for it to matter. And we've generally found people greatly underestimate their inventory that could be part of this. So let's now look at this sort of, these next two slides convey that attitude in pie charts. It was surprisingly a little tricky to find statistics that brought things together. Here's from the American Association of American Publishers, showing still 75% of books being physical books, ebooks 7.5%, 18% almost for other formats. I assume that's largely audio sales there. And what's missing? I ask rhetorically, and they don't even include used books in that. So I think when you look at that slice of the pie, it's essentially saying this is a real market. It shows it's bigger than the ebook market, and but people tend to sort of segment it off as something that is not for them, or not something they really think about in handling in the most productive way and way that can benefit them the most. So the used book market's about 2.6 billion. This is actually slightly misleading because it really depends on the segment of how big a chunk of the sales it is. So for textbooks, I saw statistics that could say 20 to 25%. So obviously that's a really big chunk of their business, that much more imperative to handle it well. The slide shows our kind of historical source of the revenue we generate from these markets. Typically it's an untapped market, and that means that the income generated from this goes directly to the publisher's bottom line as usually about a 1% net profit benefit. So a publisher with $10 million in revenue could expect about $100,000 that if we would send them. I want to pause for a second. When I talked to Jonathan and Brian, they want to emphasize that this isn't a pitch for our services. So I apologize in advance. I'm used to giving this presentation in that way, that this is intended to be informational. Of course, I'm delighted to hear from anyone afterwards. And we have a unique approach to this. This is our template, and do with it what you will. Again, context rule, but some of the pitch aspect might seep in. So I'll just apologize once for that and continue. So that $100,000, someone would say, oh, that's not that much. But the important thing to remember is A, there'll be other benefits which we talk about, and two, it requires virtually no effort on your part. Pretty much what you were doing before. If you were destroying your books, instead of doing that, we just get the books from you, we pay for the shipping, and then we, again, there'll be other benefits, but essentially you have to, it's helpful, I think, to think of the income you're generating, and that is money that is kind of found money, and how much money would it take to, how much it would take in sales to generate that 1%. And typically I found from doing research on publishers that it takes about $10 in sales to generate $1 in net profit. As my brother, who is a writer and very much not a business person, would say, Marsh, you take the garbage and you send them money. What could be so bad? It's a little bit of an oversimplification, which I'll get to, but there's something to that. Turning your waste product into net profit is a nice thing. So challenges, attitude, cognitive, behavioral, cultural. I touched on that. I'll do one more slide on that. And then some of the market forces that you're going to be up against. So this is just a simple chart about our cognitive biases. The fear of loss tends to be greater than the pleasure we get from gain. That's Amos Tversky and Daniel Kahneman made that famous. So in that, the thing to note is that, so it can sometimes cause people to say, oh, they're concerned about the loss from adding supply, but there's also an opportunity there. And I don't know if anyone's a stock investor here. It's called the equity risk premium. People choose certainty, and thus over the long term, stocks which have more risk of loss pay investors back. So there is opportunity here, but there is challenges. That is, commodity risk is real. This first came clear to me. Wonderful book, The Prize, if anyone hasn't read it. That makes clear even, that fantasy, if anyone is my age and they grew up on the Beverly Hillbillies, you strike oil, you're set for the rest of your life and then some. Even back before Rockefeller took control of the markets, if you have a commodity, there's enough people selling it, they can keep undercutting so that you can actually take a loss on it. So a book, once it's out in the marketplace, if it's competing against the same edition, is essentially a commodity. So we're very cognizant of that. And that's why it's important that we work exclusively. Ideally, we work exclusively with publishers to help control the supply. I'll talk about that later, the advantage of doing that. So here's actually, it's a myth. I showed the image earlier of the ostrich putting its head in the sand, which is kind of a trope that's actually not true. What they're doing when they do that is they're hiding their eggs. They're just checking on them now and again. If they really want to camouflage themselves, they blend in with the environment, as you see here. And to a real extent, that's what we do. We kind of blend in with the used book market without disrupting the selling ecosystem, if you will, and then we turn that into an advantage for our clients. So here's defying the laws of supply and demand. I would have put defying in quotes. I tried to, but it sort of threw off the kerning there. So I just left it as it is. So as this simple illustration shows, as Econ 101 tells us, and almost everyone sort of knows in their bones at this point, that the greater supply tends to hurt prices. And of course, you don't get to be an economic law for nothing. That is a true fact, but there are ways to defy or circumvent that through other means. Typically, essentially, the way we think of it is through branding. And so if you're Harley Davidson, you can sell your motorcycles for more, your Rolex, your Ralph Lauren. Now, Echo Point is unfortunately none of those things, but we essentially do a small version of branding by offering much better customer service and better quality books. And that allows us to not put pricing pressure on the market. And it's good to know that in general, most of the market participants just work on price. So they're kind of, if they're battling out and they're in that paradigm, if you will, and we're above them, we're not adding pricing pressure. And I'll have some statistics to show more on that later, and also give more nuance into our approach. So how do we do this? It takes an integrated approach that there's no one single factor. In other words, if we just priced above the market, but we did nothing else, that's not going to get us enough sales. So there are different aspects. One is building and maintaining trust. We do that with customers by maintaining really good customer service. Everyone in the office, if we get 99% feedback or better, I buy pizza for everyone in the office. It's a surprisingly good motivator for getting people aligned on this goal. And in terms of our publishers, the best approach is when we work on consignment with publishers, because it allows our interests to be aligned with theirs with a long-term focus. So what happens in a typical damaged book dealer is they'll buy the books outright, and then they have cash flow pressure to move the books quickly. And then that causes them to maybe be a little panicky and keep lowering the prices because they're trying to get the lowest price. But that's not how we work. Verification on tap for publishers. We're very transparent. If anyone wants to see us download reports live, they can see the sales. So we're very open. We've never had anyone want to do that. We've built our operation on being totally trustworthy, having a great reputation. But that's something to know. Constantly paying attention to details. Those intertwine with both the pricing to make sure there's a lot of details to make sure we get our pricing right, and also to keep the customers happy. It's no small feat to have a retail operation where you keep up really great customer feedback. And we provide more than just a monthly check. I'll go over that later in some of the added benefits of some of the things we can do, or some of the, making the most of the used book market. So challenge of trust. Here is a slide that shows Amazon.com. Probably a few of you have heard of them before, which bills themselves as the most customer-centric company on the planet. Interestingly, does not let themselves be rated, get feedback from their own customers when they sell directly. They used to, however, when they handled damaged stock or some of the other damaged items, allow customers to give them feedback on that. So the last time I took a screenshot, they were at 83%. And the lowest I saw them hit is 78%. And the next time I checked, this was over the course of quite a few years, next time I checked, they removed the ability to give them any feedback. So now that is like their, the rest of their operation, they get no customer feedback. However, when they go to, for their vendors and third-party sellers, they're ruthless, and you have to be, they give anytime there's any kind of disagreement between the seller and the customer, you can guess who wins. And I guess in that sense, they mean customer centric if it's at someone else's cost. We even had recently this, it's crazy policy where someone could buy a book from a different vendor, claim it was from us, return it to us, and we get charged for it. So it's no small feat to maintain this kind of feedback. You can see lifetime rating of 99%. And I always feel a little goofy saying our feedback rating is 99%, and presenting that to, sometimes I'll present to C-level executives, and but it's important and it's crucial to our strategy, and ultimately it's crucial to Amazon's strategy too. And big businesses have been built on having great customer service. The next quote is just we tend to be we are quite discreet about who our clients are, because not everyone necessarily wants to advertise they're participating in the used book market. Here's a quote from someone who was a CFO that was comfortable having his name mentioned. And when he moved to FA Davis, initially the CFO, now the CFO and COO, one of the first things he did was bring us along and have us handle their damaged stock. So it's we are balancing, treating our customers really well and our clients really well, and being thoroughly honest and trustworthy and type A about everything we do is really important. So here's going to be some marketplace details about pricing, customer service I touched on. I'll just do one more slide on that, and just presentation. Again, it's all in the details. So here's just a detailed look at our customer feedback rating. You can see again the lifetime rating of 99%. I highlighted those 62,000 feedback ratings. It's worth noting, unlike eBay, where there's a culture of if you buy something from someone, you kind of each mutually give a positive rating. That's not like that in Amazon. It's only quite a fraction of people that do it, and because you can imagine, it's only the people overall the people that are unhappy are more inclined percentage-wise to give feedback. So it's a real challenge. This was just from the other day. I just took a screenshot. Just shows the one I highlighted that there was a little problem. We immediately were on it. And if you look at some of the themes of the customers, is that they couldn't believe what good condition the book was in. So that's a nice factor. Our books are overwhelmingly in better condition than the competitors. Even if it's rental returns we're handling, they still tend to be in better condition because they haven't quite been through the mill of most books, and they're not as old. So people tend to buy from us. We got a lot of repeat customers, which again helps us keep our prices a little bit higher. So the multi-factor elements that go into pricing. Again, we price above the market. Again, strong customer service is part of that. We have software that we can see the inventory of other sellers. We account for the amount of inventory we have for a book. We account for the sales rank of the book. It's good to know that, and I'll just advance ahead and then go back in a second. Like, so for this book, we happen to have over 3,000 copies. By the way, I'm cutting off the book just again for discretion for our clients. We had over 3,000, but the customer only sees one book for that condition. So it's not like it's flooding the market. They're saying one book, and as you can also see, we're priced above the next competitor. Okay, so sees only one copy. We account for seasonality. So we handle a lot of textbooks. If it's, this time of year, things are moving quite quickly. But after the textbook season's over, prices will tend to drop. We can ignore that, especially depending upon inventory. And in general, as I know, we raise prices quickly, we lower them gradually. So even if there's a rogue seller, so let me just go back to one of those bullet points. Gathering and synthesizing data from multiple conditions to get fuller picture of the market for each book. So typically, again, this is our long-term interest for our clients, a match with ourselves. We want to see the whole picture of what's happening in the market. So we don't, if we have a book in very good condition or used like new or good, we don't just focus on that condition. We want to see what the whole market's doing. So we want to know what's all the various conditions are being priced at. So if there's a rogue seller, it helps make clear to us that person, we can kind of functionally ignore them. We're also familiar with the other big used book sellers and the market. There's obviously a gazillion different booksellers, but the biggest ones are fairly consolidated, and know the tendencies of them. It's important for us to know where the book is in its edition cycle. So if we know the book is going to soon be out of print with a new edition, we have permission from the publisher to be a bit more aggressive in our sales. And we can also customize our pricing. And so sorry, I just had a thought, but let me finish this. We can customize our pricing. So let's say there's a publisher doesn't want to sell below a certain percentage of the cost of the new book, or even by price, either across the board or by title. That's possible. In general, again, our interests are aligned, so it's not usually the case that happens, but that is an option. But I just remembered, I'm sorry I didn't mention this at the beginning, in the audience participant is Mark Marty, who's our operations manager. So he can, he lives this every day. Well, I guess he takes the weekends off, but he's incredibly dedicated, putting often the mornings on his vacation and doing pricing. But he can be available to answer any nitty-gritty questions later. Okay, this slide I already did. Just more examples of us pricing books. You can see it, different conditions, higher price than the competing books. Yeah, you can see the feedback. And let's see, just another example, just pointing out, here's, the feedback's at 90% compared to our 99%. They're showing acceptable. Here's a whole list of acceptables. There's a very good, they're pricing super aggressively on that very good. So that's an example of, we would just ignore that condition. Then there's a bunch of acceptables. And then you'll notice our book is so much higher priced than those books because we don't want to compete with acceptables. And so there you go, example. Here's an example of a large traditional remainder and damage book dealer that is pricing badly. You can see their condition is better than the other ones, but they're underpricing it, and they're leading the market down 1 penny at a time. And there's so much more room in this particular example that could have been priced higher. This Glass Frog Books, I happen to know, and Mark knows, is a arbitrager. They don't carry the inventory themselves, but they will, someone buys through them and they'll ship it from someone else. So there's a lot of room. This book could be priced way higher, but instead they're leading the market down. We do not do that, and nor should you if you're handling it. And here's, again, the same dealer, just they have better better feedback, notably better than their competitor, better condition, and they're still driving the price lower, and then that's bringing everyone else down. Again, we don't do that. This is just a quick look that shows you example the kind of attention we pay to detail on every aspect of what we do. I can't tell you, to be embarrassing to tell you how long it took me to get the exact words and abbreviation to fit so it says something before it says read more. You hit read more, then it gives you more detail. So what does the data show? I've given you an overview of how we attempt to, not attempt, but how we do have higher prices. But I use the word attempt because up until, it's been a number of years now, for the first X number of years of operation, we were convinced we didn't lower prices because we took such great care and all the various reasons I showed you, but we didn't know for sure. And then what happened is one of our publishers moved. They used to handle their own distribution, and they moved to a larger, maybe a little bit larger publisher that was handling their books. And occasionally we would get books from the other publisher mixed in. And of course we didn't sell them because we didn't have permission to, but we collected them. And then at some point we thought, hey, let's look at the pricing of those books. And we found that our clients' books were actually slightly higher, very similar, but slightly higher than this other publisher. So that made us realize, oh, wow, that's proof. And then we've since checked that multiple times over multiple publishers with very large data sets. And I'm about to show you some of those data sets and results. So this, again, to keep discretion from various publishers, this is for a large textbook publisher. The data size over over 7,000 data points. And you can see a big difference. So let me just, this might be, I'm showing a lot of Excel cells at once, so I'll just quickly walk through it. As you can see, there's over 5,000 books for us, almost 2,000 for them. The key figures here is the two average used, very good, and used compared to list. What that's showing, mostly the one I highlight in yellow is the most important, is that it's the very good's a strong customer favorite, and it shows the condition of that book. And that's our most popular category. Condition of that book to the list price of the book. So if the book was selling for $4 as a $10 book, that would be 40% of list price. And you can see for that publisher was 38% of list. For our clients, it was 56%. And that's with their books happen to have better sales rank. So in that sense, it's even more impressive. And if you look at the effect of sales rank on the next two slides, it narrows that amount a bit. But that's also what it reveals is just the amount of skill or care it takes to maintain better, that overall better used to list price, because that really shows up in the books that don't sell as quickly. So, and then here is an even larger textbook publisher, very large data set, almost 18,000 books in this one. And let's see. So here you see now this publisher has always destroyed their damaged stock and rental returns. So there was not, they're not adding any inventory, but still you can see our books, our clients' books are holding up much better in the marketplace. Not much better, holding up better in the marketplace. And then if you adjust, you look at the second step below, and you adjust for sales rank, because our sales ranks on our books are notably higher. I believe that's because, to get this data, we had to scrape that data online, and it just shows they're better sellers. So once you adjust for sales rank, then there's an even bigger differential of 6%. I'm not sure exactly why we should be higher. Sometimes when we check, it can be very close or almost exactly the same. In this case, I'm not exactly sure, except we do, as you'll see, as the slides go on, other services for publishers, just as having our interests aligned. If we see any counterfeit books, we see lifting mistakes, we tell the publishers about and get those corrected, so that can help. But I sort of don't think that counts for that total differential. But the most important takeaway is we're certainly not lowering or hurting the sales, the used book market. Here just quickly shows the over time, there are more used books offered over time, levels off at some point. And then this is sort of the effect of that, which is the most notable of these two charts to see, which is, as you can see, and this is totally intuitive, over time, the price of used books compared to new tends to go down. Makes sense. The longer the book's been out there, the more books that are out there to sell, that would hurt the used book price. So initially, this could seem like, oh dear, that's bad. But what it's essentially saying is, no matter what you do, if you never sell your books, as the blue line shows, that publisher, you're still going to have that same depreciation in the price of the book. So you might as well, even if you do nothing, it's going to happen. Why not participate in that market, not just have someone else make all that money as that price goes down? If you're not adding pricing pressure, which again, we don't, or you can, if you're going to set yourself up, you want to do it that way, and then you can participate in that market. You'll see it kind of levels off over time, which I think also makes intuitive sense, because at some point, probably the book's either no longer relevant, or if it is, then people are maybe more interested in it for some of the older titles. One notable factor here, as you can see in the second year in, that's the only place that the price is slightly higher, and it's actually a 2% difference for the other publisher compared to our clients. And I think you can, in my mind, that's sort of the cost of doing business, that there's just a little bit more, probably takes longer for the used book markets to use books to collect to other sellers. Like a lot of the way they get supply for other dealers is they'll go on campuses and buy back books from people, students, and that's where that supply differential, but it's a very small differential, and every other year our prices are the same, or more often our prices are holding up better. So then, okay, on to the next slide. Turning lemons, yes, you can guess it, this is very cliched, into lemonade, which is basically saying we try to make the most of all the opportunities the used book market offers to our publishing clients. I was happy a few years ago to find there's a business name for that called value engineering. I like the sound of that. That's what we naturally do, even before we knew the name. And it's to maximize opportunities. So this is a quick list of what we do. Some of them I've already covered. I can just give you a short bit to read it, and then I'll go over them in a little bit of detail. But now going into detail about these. So direct customer contact. So a unique, well, it's not, I guess not totally unique. Some publishers do sell direct to customers, but we have an opportunity when we sell books, ship their books directly to customers, which is they get the physical book. It's kind of a high interest moment when they open the book, look at it. If there's a flyer, something promotional in them, they have a chance to look at it then, or over time if it's like a bookmark. So that's one possibility. The other is so the way we typically work is at the end of every month, we send our clients a list of the books that are sold. Historically, the books, along with that list, is the names, addresses, and email addresses of all the customers. Now, a few years ago, Amazon got rid of the email addresses, but still included the physical addresses. That doesn't automatically happen, but obviously we have to ship the books to people. We can match them up. So if a publisher wants that, we can include the physical address in the list we send. And then there are services for, reasonably inexpensive if anyone wants to try to find out email addresses. Those are up to the publisher. But that's an example of how direct contact can potentially be a marketing opportunity. So insights from data. Went to some of the things you can see from looking at the the used book market. Again, a significant part of the publishing landscape is can give you some ideas about what to do. So one is to bring out new editions. So we've had books, books could sell hundreds of thousands of copies, but over time, as you saw in that chart, as it slopes down, there's enough used books out there. The used price will start to get lower and lower, regardless of whether we're there or not, just because there's that many more books. And if you wait to the last minute, it's like, oh, we need a new edition. But you can, if you sort of see that process over time, you can start getting a new edition ready to refresh sales of that. So my understanding, I don't have the statistics of this, right? I to quote, but that used books have a marginal effect on new book sales, except when the prices maybe are really, really low, and then it can have, can start pulling away sales. So that's the kind of situation you want to avoid. If you can sort of see that process happening, you have time to bring out a new edition. It also can give you some suggestions for ebook pricing. If you're seeing that a lot of buyers come in at a certain price point, that can give a clue of where you might want to price an ebook or any other product that might be an adjunct to the book. And it just gives you a fuller picture of what's happening in the marketplace. One thing that Amazon has made abundantly clear to everyone is that data equals power, equal profits, and clues to opportunities. And so it just gives you more data, more insights into what's happening. You also can get potentially some hints from geographical sales clusters that might not show up in bookstore data, and that maybe can give you some more insights. So this slide is just a visual. We don't publish these particular books, but it's just a visual to remind you, or another opportunity that we do is we turn books that someone might want a spiral edition, which could be a manual, a study guide, anything how-to, a reference book, and make it easier to use. You can get premium prices for these books, and we've done that for damaged stock. We also work with publishers selling their brand new books because we can get higher prices for them. And a certain segment of the customers really like them. And again, we can often sell them for higher than Amazon selling the brand new copy of the edition for a damaged copy. So this is just going over some of the other things we do, which is monitoring counterfeits, I mentioned, and also listing errors that sometimes Amazon will just screw up a listing that costs you sales, or they'll have editions in funny places. We're on the ground seeing that. We see potentially sellers that look like they're getting their books from overseas, and we can let our partners know about that. Overstock and soft remaindering sales, I mentioned that this gives an opportunity if you're not ready to totally remainder a book, or even if you are, you can get higher price points by us handling it directly. Selling new books at used low. We have a publisher that they want to move more inventory. We take some of their used stock, new stock, and sell it as used books to get higher prices. So they always have inventory, because our inventory is can be very hit or miss. It might be a book that's selling great, but just didn't come through as a damaged book or rental return, so we can't sell. But if they want to keep that flow going, there's that. And selling new books directly, especially with distribution issues. So this has happened both before and after COVID, but it was most notable during COVID when Amazon wasn't taking new books. They weren't taking any inventory. So publishers couldn't couldn't add new books. So because we have the good feedback and the experience with dealing with customers, we listed the book for them and then just sent them the orders on a daily basis. They shipped them directly. We handled customer service. Obviously, we did that for a notably lower fee than the labor. Handling the damaged stock, because conditioning is really important, it's quite labor intensive. So we were able to do that for our partners. And then last is donations for tax write-offs, which is if we have a publisher that we'll collect their, we normally, you have to recycle a certain amount of inventory. We always check with partner before doing that. But some you could take those books, send them overseas, or however you wanted to handle them. You want to be careful not to have them come back on the market and get a tax write-off. So that basically covers what I want to cover, and almost exactly on time. And just the next steps, getting started. If you want to do more, you basically have a template for the kind of things you need to do. If you want to be able, if you were to want to handle it yourself, or again, as far as I know, we're the only dealer that has this approach to keep the prices higher than the market. But you have the elements of how to do that. If you want to explore working with us, just reach out to me. I think my email address is on there. It's Marshall with 2 L's at echopointbooks.com. And we set up with anyone, we can set up on a trial basis. There's no risk or commitment. You can just send us a few pallets, see how it goes. The proof is always in the pudding to see if it doesn't have a bad effect, a deleterious effect on your any other sales. And that you can also, one thing that can be helpful is if you have a spreadsheet of your returns, to send it to us, and we can do an estimate of what kind of income we could generate for you. We're not necessarily a good fit for everyone. Sometimes with publishers that are really small, it might not work for us, or for whatever reason, very occasionally it's not a good fit, but in general, no harm to ask. One of the biggest challenges can be, if you're interested, is you might not have everyone on board in your operation, because, as I said, the cognitive bias and the fear of losing out, especially someone maybe in sales and marketing, or just assuming it will hurt your sales. So it's often good to work with a CFO, publisher, someone in special market sales, because special market sales has their own distinctive goals, but CFO and publishers see the bigger picture. And we, as I said, cover the cost of shipping, and I think that's it. I see there's some Q&A, so I will go to that.
Thank you. Thank you, Marshall. And
sure.
that was great. So let's if any participants out there are still want to ask a question, please put it in the Q&A box. But Beth was asking if Amazon is your primary way that you sell, and what happens if a publisher is already selling on Amazon successfully.
Sure. So yeah, we do sell in other marketplaces. Amazon, as everyone knows, is the I want to say 800-pound gorilla, but probably the 1,800-pound gorilla. And so yes, that is the biggest place we sell. If a publisher is already selling their books on, if you're saying you already are handling your damaged books or your used books there, then that would be a conversation that maybe we could help you do it better. But if you're already doing it, then obviously you'd be doing it. If you're just talking about your new books, that is exactly what we do. The used books are being sold alongside with new books. No matter who you are, you can't stop that from happening. That's what I was showing in that publisher that doesn't, and I'm sorry if this isn't answering relevant to what you're actually asking, but the publisher, they didn't sell, they destroyed their damaged stock and rental returns, but there's still a lot of used copies out there. So that's what we essentially be allowing you to participate in that market. So hopefully that answers your questions.
Edson had a question: if you do anything to improve the condition of books, or if books that you're getting don't meet a threshold, then if it's better just to not sell them.
Yeah, I tend to be as Mark, sorry, I can't see who's out there or not, but I know I tend to be kind of a pat rack and reluctant to hold books. We tend to hold between say 5 and 7 years worth of inventory of a book. And so, yes, we do what we can to improve a book's condition. It's somewhat dependent on, if we have, in some books, we might have 1,000 or thousands of a copy, then we're obviously not going to go through. But before any book goes out the door, we have all sorts of cleaning products that we use, and we'll do that. Or when we're processing, if we don't have a lot of inventory, we'll do whatever we can to prove the book's condition, because that gets higher prices for the books. There was something else I was going to say. Oh, one other thing I forgot to mention is that when working on the consignment model, until the book sells, the book belongs to the publisher. So sometimes a book might need a copy of something, either because we've had cases where they actually sold out of a book and the person buying it was willing to take slightly less conditioned books, so they'll make the sale, that sells theirs. Or maybe you want it for publicity copies, you'd rather use copies all dinged up. So those are all possibilities.
And kind of a question that can be tackled together, your in terms of the publishers and the books that you represent, textbooks versus trade, and then does everything come in directly from publishers? You're only working with publishers, not with bookstores or campus stores or even students directly.
Right. Yes, everything we get comes from publishers. So yeah, that's how I work. And then so I'm sorry, was the question of textbook versus trade? Sorry, Jonathan, I spaced a bit.
Yeah, I'm sorry. Yeah, and textbook versus trade sales.
Yeah. Good question. I don't have a clear answer to that. Mark might have that. We traditionally started, my first client, not surprisingly, was an environmental publication, was an environmental publisher. And then I'm a practicing Buddhist, then I had Buddhist books, and we sort of built like that. But over time, we could see just the size of the market in textbooks. And so we have more textbooks than anything, and it is a huge portion of what we do. That said, it can work for any types of books. In general, fiction doesn't work so great. So it's more for nonfiction, works better, mostly because with fiction, oftentimes, sadly, people will take a book and pass it on, or they've read it, whereas nonfiction, they tend to hold on to it for reference. So it just maintains a stronger market. Should I just tackle the question, Jonathan, or do you want to?
Well, we have one question I think is good to get a sense of is what happens if books in a given consignment do not sell?
Yeah. Yep. Excellent question. That's, as I said, we do recycle a certain percentage of books. Obviously, it will vary from publisher to publisher. As I said, we tend to hold between 5 and 7 years worth of inventory on a book. We don't like to get rid of inventory, but if there's something that's just clearly not going to sell, or maybe there's a new edition, we'll mark it for recycling. We always check with the publisher before we actually recycle it. Then we issue a certificate if the publisher so desires, issue a certificate of destruction with the partners that destroy books, so that they can feel confident that the books are actually going away. And as I said, everything we do, we're really transparent. It's so important for us to have a great reputation in the industry, and for our clients to feel comfortable. So if anyone wants to see live reports or anything that they can, we're very much an open book to verify, we do what we say we do. And I like to think that maintaining the kind of customer feedback we do is revealing about the kind of company we are. I mean, I think it's interesting, with Amazon, they aren't always straight with people, and so they don't let people give them feedback, but we very much are the opposite of that. Very, very transparent, really important for us to have a good reputation.
I was interested in it, and it seems like there's some interest here in terms of the spiral editions that you create, because those are being created on the secondary market. They're not new editions of books that are then given an ISBN by the publisher or by you, correct?
Yes. Yeah. No, that's a great question. I was so conscious of the time, I sped through a few things. So that's an important question. So a couple things. One, this is where we're somewhat of a unique operation in that not only do we have the damaged book operation, but we are also a publisher. And I'm maybe there's someone else out there doing that, but I'm not aware of them. So there are ISBNs. We will not do that, of course, unless we get permission from our publishing clients that they're open to that. And then then we can do it. So and again, some of the clients, they actually, because we can get higher price points, will want us to do it even for new stock, but we would be responsible for creating the ISBN. And then in terms of sorry, do you announce the other question, Jonathan? Sorry.
If you want to tackle that, yeah,
Yeah.
you were also asked about, you know, any insights on, you know, how the use and damage market in the U.S. Compares to internationally.
Yeah, unfortunately, I don't. I've kind of been intrigued to know more about that, and but I don't have real insights in that. I think in the UK returns are handled differently, and maybe there's less of them. But you probably, that might be more of a Jonathan or Brian question than a me question.
Well, Brian knows a little bit about the UK market, but we focus on the US.
Yeah.
So one thing I wanted to give you a chance to speak, you know, again about, you know, that interests me a lot is, you know, you did speak to some of the things, but you know, the benefits to your process beyond revenue towards your clients. You mentioned some of the marketing analytics, and also very briefly, and I'd be interested to hear more about, you know, looking for being able to monitor for counterfeit copies. If you wanted to speak about kind of the non-direct revenue benefits.
Yeah. So, you know, we don't have a, you know, official program. I tend to be pretty entrepreneurial, as maybe it's you know, apparent. And I've thought about trying to come up with some service that kind of systematically does that. And I believe maybe there actually are, which is maybe why I explored it a little bit and didn't pursue it. But it's more just, you know, things we bump into. And in some ways, those are the type of things that aren't caught systematically, because, you know, being so intimate with the various markets, you'll see something like, how the heck are they selling that book at that price, day in, day out, at this price point? It just, they're losing money on it. They can't do it. It's impossible. So it might be that kind of thing. And, you know, I assume if, you know, Mark's listening, that he's sort of shaking his head like, you know, those are some of what we run into. Our headaches are essentially headaches that publishers would have. So we just pass it on and we can work together. You know, we've seen like on eBay, they're selling PDFs of books, which still drives me nuts. They've been terrible about monitoring that, as people are probably aware. And, you know, just things that we bump into, or that there'll be a listing mistake. We'll see, we have expectations of what a book should sell. And if it's not meeting those expectations, we roll up our sleeves and we look at it, and we can often discover listing errors, or we'll see, you know, part of it is, and the common denominator to all four aspects of our business, the spirals, our publishing program is we mostly bring books that were out of print back into print. Our audio program licensing is, we're really know Amazon, I think, about as well as anybody, especially a non-Amazon employee. And we explore the little niches that are available. So we can look, and I've had people that have literally worked at Echo Point for years, and I'll just think, oh, don't you see that? And there's something about maybe someone who's a surfer in Southern California for 10 years, they can read a wave and they kind of know where it's going to break. I don't know if that's the best analogy, but I've just spent so much time on Amazon, we can all see pretty quickly, certainly Mark and I, where something looks awry, and then we explore that further. So that can be, you know, not scientific, but we do turn up things that way.
Is one of the theories that you work under that people looking for used books on Amazon are not so much price conscious, that they're looking for the seller that has a higher ranking and has better quality versus the lowest price?
Yeah, no, I think people in the used book market, I mean, this is just based on my own opinion, but I think they are generally looking for price. But if they're, I mean, I buy used books on, you know, on there. I buy new and used books. And sometimes you'll see, I can read it pretty well, but I'd rather pay a bit more. Well, first of all, I always would pay more to avoid buying from Amazon personally, but pay a bit more to get something that you know it's not going to be a hassle. So I think it's, that intersection of, you want a good price, but is it really worth an extra, 50 cents, $1, $2 to, especially when it's, say, a textbook and you're worried about getting the book in time for your semester, or knowing someone that you can, rock solid rely on them. So I think that's, it's probably going to vary from person to person, but certainly I don't think we would exist if there wasn't a certain strong segment of the population that does buy books that way.
And maybe one final question. I mean, do you have a sense of the inventory you get from publishers, if it's surplus, if it's clearing collections, if it's true hurt books, that can't be sold as new books, or it's kind of just a mix of all three?
Yeah, I would say a mix. It can depend on publishers. Some, it's a bit tricky because, and this is one of the reasons why it's good for us to be on consignment, so it doesn't constrain anyone, is that, if you have 10,000 copies of a book and you get 40 back, and either because of warehousing costs or labor to rebox them, even if the books are in really good condition, it may well not be worth it for you. But it's kind of also a shame to just destroy those books. So those books might just go, in with a damaged stock. So it can be a mix, but generally the books have, some sort of ding on them. But still, when you compare them to to the average used book, which might, have yellowing pages and smell like smoke, or, just a lot of highlighting, we're still going to be like, people are going to be really stoked when they get our books, because they're going to say, wow, this is like a new book. Oh yeah, there's a bend on the cover, or there's an extra sticker, but you're still getting that. I'm such a new book person. My wife, who's also was an editor at HarperCollins for many years, makes fun of me, because when we go pre-COVID, when we go to a town, one of the first things I want to do is go to the bookstore, and I end up actually smelling the books, and I just love books, and it gives that kind of experience to someone when they get a book. And there is something about, and I think that's why even with prices lower, people buy new books over used, because they like that new book feel and experience. And so we give them that, and people know that over time from us. So I think that's why we got a lot of repeat customers, and again, can price higher.
Well, thank you, Marshall. And
thank you.
Unless you had any parting thoughts, I think we have no more questions in the queue, so we can thank you once again. And if anybody tuned in late, we will get this recording out to you within the next few days.
Yeah, and I assume there's some kind of contact information on there if anyone wants to reach out to me.
Yes, we'll get that out.
Okay, and thank you guys, did a great job helping me get this organized. So thanks so much. And I can't see who's there, but if you are, nice to see you. Look forward to hearing from you.
We thank you. Thanks again.
All right. Okay, take care. Bye-bye.